Okay, do not mix your politics with your money. This is going to be a good one, but before we get started, I'd like to ask you to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button if you find my content valuable. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. All right, let's get into this one. Do not mix your politics with your money. Here recently, I was watching a real quick video clip, and it was Warren Buffett. And I really respect Warren Buffett as far as investing and what to do with your money. And what he was particularly talking about was investing. But he was saying, do not mix your politics with your investing. And he even mentioned in that video that when he voted for a president, for example, and who he voted for did not get into office, that he did not allow that to influence how he was investing, or what he was investing in, or whether he participated in investing. And Warren Buffett is very, very wise. And so that got me to think about the environment that we're in right now. We are in an environment where politics has gotten really, the only way to put it is nasty. We are at a point to where it is not a situation where the folks on the other side of the political spectrum, let's say that you're on the left and there's political folks or politicians on the right, or you're on the right and there's politicians or political folks on the left. We no longer look at the other side as someone with different ideas on how to solve problems or different perspectives. We look at the other side as evil. We look at the other side as our enemy, almost as a pest or an invasion that needs to be exterminated. That's where our politics have gone. I call it the WWEification or the UFCification of politics. And stick through the end of this video because I'm going to be talking about some of the traps here as far as this political divide that we're going through, and what I suggest that you do in order to get your finances where you want them to be, and how to gain perspective there so that you don't get trapped into being sucked down silos and these political fights, really, that we are in today. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit. You know, like I know, if you ever get into any kind of political discussion with anyone, often it descends into this wide division. Just like what I was saying, folks are just completely against each other. We're divided. We're throwing stones at each other. Again, the idea is not to look at someone who has a little bit different perspective than you, or maybe a lot different perspective from you, and rather than coming together and doing what has now become that dirty word, compromise, talking to each other and finding out where there may be similarities or places where you agree, and actually implementing things and policies that move things forward for the American people. I'll digress a little bit to just tell you a little bit about what I think when I'm actually voting for someone and putting someone in office. This may be kind of a Pollyanna way of thinking of things, but when I vote for someone, what I'm hoping that they do is actually go into government, go to Washington, or if it's local, go to local government. And what they're going to do is sit down with people that may disagree with them, may have different views, but I want them to go into that room in good faith and have discussions and come up with ideas, and that hopefully come up with win-win, what on a point or legislation that they agree on, and move the ball forward for their constituency. In the case of the larger federal government and the president and the administration currently now and in the past and in the future here, what I would like to see is for them, like I said, to come together, have discussions, have intellectual arguments, if you want to call it that, and sit down and figure out where they agree and where they disagree, and come up with something that helps the majority of the American people. And we're just not seeing that. We're seeing politicians throw stones at each other. In fact, what's frustrating for me is I turn on the television and actually see politicians calling each other names, making fun of each other, even using profanity sometimes, calling each other unintelligent, even stupid. And this is, how do I put this, rather childish when we're dealing with all of the things that we're dealing with today. I don't know about you, but for me, things have gone up. My utilities have gone up. My insurance has gone up. When I go to the store and I buy things on the shelf, the price has gone up. And a lot of Americans are dealing with this. You are probably dealing with this. So what we want our politicians to do is to go there and actually solve these problems. Or even if they don't solve them, move the ball forward for the American people. Work together. Because guess what? We are all in the same American boat. I think about this like a boat where we're Americans and we're rowing. And we have one side of the boat, because we basically have two dominant political parties here in the U.S. One side of the boat is on the left, Democrats. One side of the boat is on the right, Republicans. And we're rowing, okay? But unfortunately in this boat, the Democrats are rowing one way and the Republicans are rowing the other way. So what you get, rather than moving forward and getting to a destination, is we have a situation where one party is rowing one way and one party is rowing the other way, and the boat's just going around and around in circles. And to make things worse, we're throwing stones and spears at each other. So what happens in this analogy is we throw those stones and spears, and what happens is it hits the sides of the boats and knocks holes in our boat. So not only are we spinning around and not getting anywhere, but we're taking on water and sinking in this boat analogy. Rather than working with each other, finding out where we have commonalities and finding out where we might be able to move forward and moving the American boat forward. But this is the environment that we're in. And if you're too caught up in your politics, you cannot have objective thinking about your finances. You're far too caught up in your politics to have any kind of forward momentum in your financial picture, in your personal finance picture. Let me give an example that might be helpful. Think about different policies, like the current administration has a policy of no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. Do you really have any idea how this policy is being implemented? If you're 100% for the current administration, you might just say, hey, it's a great policy. It's the best thing since sliced bread. If you're against the administration, you might say, just right off that it's a bad policy. It's the most terrible thing that any administration has ever come up with. But in both cases, unless you pull yourself out of your political bias and actually look at the particular plan being implemented, then you're not looking at it objectively and finding out its advantages and disadvantages in your current situation. Now, for me personally, I don't work on tips, and I hardly ever get any overtime at all, so neither one of these things affect me. But as I look at that policy, the way that it works is that you do not get the tax break right away. If you look at your check, you work some overtime, you're still going to pay taxes immediately on that overtime. But where it works is when you actually get your tax return, you're actually able to work and get that benefit at the time that you actually file your taxes. And this could be an advantage for you if you're actually objective about it and take advantage of it, okay? And it's the same thing. You may be thinking that that whatever the president and the administration does is the best thing since sliced bread. And then you find out about this and think, oh, wow, I'm not going to have any taxes on my overtime. And then you look at your check and see that it is taxed immediately, and you're upset, you're disappointed. Well, the whole point is to pull yourself out of those politics. Pull yourself out of not having the ability to use your critical thinking and objectively look at things so that you can take advantage of opportunity and also minimize any policies or things that an administration rather comes out with, whether it's the current administration or administrations in the future. You're able to minimize the disadvantages that you may have due to whatever policies they implement. But to do that, you have to be able to engage your critical thinking and not be caught in the silo of your particular bias, of your particular political position, okay? Because I don't know that the government is going to get to the point of having reasonable discourse between each other that moves the ball forward for us. In fact, right now, the federal government is in a shutdown that just started yesterday because lawmakers cannot agree on what to do to fund the government. And guess who a lot of this lack of decision, lack of working together, lack of figuring out how to move the ball forward, to row that boat, Republicans and Democrats rowing in the same direction, making the compromises to move the boat forward. By not doing that, guess who gets hit? You and me. And in fact, government workers, they're being hit right on the nose right now. Some of them are not being paid. Some of them are being furloughed. Some of their jobs, from what the president's currently saying now, are going to be eliminated during this period. And we've even seen layoffs all over the place, in the private sector, and now it looks like in a big way it's going to be in the government. This could happen. This could happen to you. Even if you're in the private sector, you could be laid off. So the question is, are you all caught up in your politics? Are you all caught up in the president and the current administration are the best thing since sliced bread? Or they're the worst administration ever to come into office? If you're on either side of that extreme and you're not pulling out of that to actually use your critical thinking, to look at your personal finances and do what it takes to create the greatest amount of advantage that you can take advantage of and minimizing those disadvantages as much as you can, then I don't know, you're in a tough position because we are in a very, very challenging period. And in my opinion, what's going on in Washington is not helping us at this point. So you got to pull out of the political situation, what I call the UFC-ification and the WWE-ification of politics, where the whole idea and the whole push is to own the other side, to make the other guy on the other side look bad, to see them as the enemy. It's us against them rather than us working together. And particularly if you're in the middle class or below, we're all in the same boat. And we need to work together, I think. But even if that never happens over in Washington, you've got to look at your situation in an objective way. What is it that you need to do to bring your finances together? Now, I never like to have one of these videos without at least talking a little bit or a lot about what it is that you need to do. I often talk about certain steps in a plan. One, I recommend having an emergency fund, at least $2,000 to start out. Then I talk about taking advantage of the company match if you have one at work in something like a 401k. Often that's a 100% return on your money. 100%, that is powerful. You want to take advantage of that. Then you want to get rid of consumer debt. And I really recommend getting rid of all of your consumer debt, especially with everything that's going on. The tariffs, the layoffs, the deportations that are getting rid of a lot of the workforce, from agriculture all the way to tech jobs, where immigrants are no longer filling those jobs. And so we're having that happen in the economy, that hit. Just prices going up overall. People cannot afford housing. Now, I see all sorts of things online now where YouTubers are taking TikTok videos and taking clips of people who are house poor. They're losing their homes, or they just can't even purchase a home. Their cars are being repossessed, and so on. We are dealing with some serious, serious challenges. So I suggest becoming completely debt-free, including your house. 23% of people are completely debt-free. I think just here in America, 23% of people are debt-free. That means that 77% of people are holding some kind of debt. They're holding credit card debt, car debt, and I throw in there even home debt. If you can get completely debt-free, the challenges that we have in our environment, you'll have a lot better chance of being able to weather a layoff, weather these prices that are inching up on all of us. So consider that. But at the very, very least, get rid of consumer debt. Get rid of credit cards. Get rid of things like tote note or payday loans, which some people get caught up in that. Forego things like, I see a lot of people, or young people rather, sports gambling and things like that. It is time to take advantage and to protect your personal finances. And then I talk about the step after getting rid of debt and things like that completely, is to start to build wealth for yourself. Utilizing, I like index funds. Particularly, I use a total stock market index fund, which are all of the companies here in the US. And then I also utilize a world market fund that has North American companies as well as companies around the world, in an index fund that's highly diversified. Don't let politics overshadow all of your thinking and shut down your critical thinking and your ability to pull out of this us versus them mentality and look at policies that our president and the administration are implementing, and what are the advantages of those policies, and can you take advantage of that, and how can you minimize the disadvantages for you? And I'll make a plea out there. I'm not sure this is going to happen, but I'll make a plea. Let's think about working together. Let's think about taking someone who thinks a little bit differently than you and actually listening to them and trying to see where we have common ground rather. I think that many of us are in the same boat. I don't even think that, I know that. We're in the same boat. Let's start to talk to each other. Let's start to work with each other. And even if that doesn't come to pass, think objectively about your personal finances and take concrete steps to move you from where you are to where you want to go. Now, if you find my content valuable, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Thanks again for joining me here on The Walk and listening.